This is Fans on the Run, a podcast made by, for, and about Beatles fans. And now, here's your host, Alexanian.
Welcome back to Fans on the Run, my own personal favorite Beatle podcast. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a reputable source. Anyways, how are you today out there, listeners? Good. Me too. Anyways, we have a great guest for you today. I have become acquainted with this man through another show, which shall not be named, because I'm only plugging Fans on the Run today. Okay, fine, Plastic EP, it's every week, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, anyways, you know the deal. He is a member of All You Need Is Love, one of my favorite Beatle tribute bands, because, yes, they are Canadian. They are Canadian. I looked at my guest list and I realized I've only had about 2 Canadians on the show before, which is weird because I'm Canadian. But anyways, Nathan Liu, welcome to Fans on the Run.
Well, hey, Ethan, how you doing?
I'm doing very well right now. How are you?
Well, listen, you're proud to be Canadian, same with me. And I'm going to tell you right now, tribute bands all started in Canada, way back in the 70s, so we can be proud of that
really?
As well.
Tribute bands started in Canada.
That's true.
What's your source on that?
I read it.
You heard it here first.
It's got to be true. It's got to be true. I got it off the internet, off Google. It's got to be true.
Of course. That's just the law of the universe.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty, it doesn't really matter, but I just like to say that because we're Canadian. You know what I mean, Ethan?
Yeah. It's, again, is anyone really going to take the time to find out if it's true or not? The good thing about facts is that you can lie about them, and a lot of people are too lazy to find out if you're telling the truth or not.
Ethan, the boys from All You Need Is Love, tribute to the Fab Four from Calgary here, Van, Aaron, Reed, and Brian, they all want to say hi to you.
Oh, man.
They wish they could, yeah.
I guess I'm popular then.
Yeah, and, we know that you're so cool. We're going to send you a All You Need Is Love t-shirt just for you, Ethan.
Just for me?
Just for you, pal.
Oh, man.
For your birthday.
It's like my birthday all over again. I get to turn 18 twice.
And you get some freebies too.
Oh, I like free stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to send you a shirt. All right?
All right. I'm down.
All right.
So, let me jump right back to the beginning.
Sure.
How did you first discover the Beatles?
Well, I was born in 1961, so my Aunt Marion used to look after us as kids, and she used to play all the Beatle albums. Mm-hmm. Now I'm saying records on a record player, and I was about 2 or 3, and I heard I think it's Meet the Beatles that has All My Lovin' and all those songs, and it was played over and over and over. And
are you sure it was Meet the Beatles and not the Canadian Beatlemania with the Beatles?
What was the Canadian one called?
Beatlemania with the Beatles.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's black and white, right?
Yeah.
With the shadowed Beatles?
Yeah.
Okay, well, at that time, I remember that my aunt bought it for $2.50 because the price tag was on it. And hearing all these songs over and over and over when she babysat me, I was probably like 4 when that album came out. And, I was listening to the Beatles, and I thought, I'm a kid, but this sound is so different than everybody else. And then as I grew into a man, I never thought that I was going to portray Paul McCartney. Think about that. I'm a kid and my Aunt Marion is playing me these records. And then, later on I decided to do this because of that. So that's how it started.
I've actually got something that I think you might get a kick out of. I don't have them out right now, but I have these, I have a copy of Meet the Beatles and a copy of Beatles 65, both with price tags still on them, from Eaton's.
Yes, they had a section that had stereos and records. And the neat thing about records is when you buy them and you smell them, whether you buy them now or back then, they smell the same. There's a certain smell.
I know exactly what you mean.
Okay, so
they smell like
audiophile.
To me, it's almost like the smell of old books.
You know, that's one of the smells, but it's just a smell that's so distinct. Like when you get into there and you love vinyl, it's got to be the best smell, right?
Oh, yes.
Because it's like, you know, it doesn't smell like a CD, right? When you get a CD, it doesn't smell like anything.
Actually, I wouldn't even know. I haven't bought a CD in about 7 years.
Because they're too small. You can't get the artwork on there. You can't get the lyrics on there. It's just too small.
Yeah. There's nothing better, and it's cliche to say this, but then there's nothing better than having that, 12-inch artwork.
Well, when you listen to a record, it's completely different than when you listen to a CD.
Mm-hmm.
You know that, right?
Oh, yeah.
There are people who are going to argue, and, they got pretty close, but a record sounds like a record, and a CD sounds like a CD. And now the younger generation saying, I don't like CDs. I want to listen to records.
I mean, to be fair, most of them are listening to Spotify, which is worse than either of them.
Well, there are people of your age, and I don't know how they do it, but they get to the dad's garage one day, and they see this box, and they look and they go, oh, records. Led Zeppelin, Supertramp, Beatles, everything. And you go, Dad's pretty cool. He listened to Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. You're discovering all that stuff that we already did the first time 25, 30 years ago.
Well, I didn't have that exact kind of experience where, find it in a box in a garage and it's like, oh, wow, my dad. But my dad did pass down a lot of the music he loved, and he loved having me learn about it and, listen to it. Like, I still remember when I first discovered The Who and how happy he was that I finally knew who The Who were.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story about The Who if you're a big fan.
I'm a very big fan of The Who.
Okay, I'm going to tell you this story, okay?
I will not stop you.
Now, okay. Well, I have a 4-piece band, and we were the Fab Four for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And then we wanted to be more than the Fab Four. We wanted to have a keyboardist so we could play all the progressive Beatles music with horns, strings, or whatnot that we couldn't do. So I enlisted this fella. Now, I want you to listen really carefully. I actually got this fella. His name is John Limesider. And he worked at the Music Center of Canada, or over here, and it's a biggest music place in all of Canada. And
is it still?
They have the Rolling Stones. Yes, they have that's it. They have the Rolling Stones mobile unit recording van there that recorded Fleetwood Mac, Deep Purple, Machine Head, Bob Marley, and John Limesider refurbished this van. And, he was sought after over the world. He was the greatest keyboard restorer. And he was a keyboard player for Iron Butterfly, Gata de Vida.
Oh, yes.
And he was my keyboardist. And one time he was telling me a story that the Who was in town, and Pete Townsend was having a fit because his guitar foot pedal wouldn't work. So his tech was trying to fix it. And this is at sound check. So he's having a fit, right? So the tech is, going out of his mind. He can't fix it, right? Mm-hmm. So he phones up John, and he's at the Saddle Dome here, which is where the Who were playing. We'll get in the cab and get Pete's foot pedal and get down here, and I'll see what I can do. So John fixes it, and then they get back to the arena, and they hook it up, and Pete's all happy. And this guy says, "You want to stay to the concert and meet the Who?" So the guy that's in my band, John Limesider, he fixed Pete Townsend's foot pedal, and he probably got this guy to save his job because Pete was really mad, right?
Yeah. Oh, man.
So I've had shows where I say, John, we got a show, blah, blah, blah. And he says, well, Nathan, I can't do it because I'm going to Barbados to go fix 15 keyboards for Lenny Kravitz, right?
Really?
So if you look up John Limesider, he was more than just a keyboard player. He was famous, and it was the first time that I ever had anybody pass that was in my band, and we miss him dearly. So that's the story about the Who. And he also, he'd say, I can't make practice tonight. I got to go and detune Stevie Wonder's piano, or I have to, and he was also working in California preparing 50 tube amps that were Fenders for America. Do you know America, the band?
Yes.
Well, John Limesider was a guitar tech back in the 70s, and he did 50 tube amps for America before they were going out on their tour. So when we went on our road trips, we would travel together, and he would tell me all these great stories, so it was great to know him. But, I'm on the show to tell you today how it all started, and you asked me. So for me, Ethan, how I got involved with being in a tribute band is I saw the original Beatlemania show back in the 70s, but I did not see the one in New York because, that band, they wouldn't branch out that far because everybody wanted them so bad. So they came up with 6 or 7 or 8 funk bands where they didn't look like as much as Mitch did as Paul McCartney, but they were good. So they came to Vancouver, Canada, and I went there with a good friend of mine, and his name was Paul Marsh, and we're still friends today. And,
hi, Paul.
We saw Beatlemania, and this is what happened. You hear this voice. It says, "Please don't smoke anything in the theater." And then they started. The show starts with "I Want to Hold Your Hand." You hear it, and then you see this curtain open, and you see this big silk screen where you can just see through it, but it looks like the Beatles because you can't see any detail.
Yeah.
Then they lift up the screen, and it's this bunk band. And I'll tell you, I was 19 at the time, and you see these guys in the Beatles suits, the guitars, and they're doing the songs. There was nothing like it at the time. They were the only tribute bands. So it wasn't Mitch, it wasn't the Broadway, but it was because these guys were funk bands. So when I saw that, I said, "This is just amazing. I love the Beatles," and I had a dream. I said, "I want to do the Beatles," and I know which Beatle I was going to do because I've always admired Paul McCartney's bass playing and his voice, his singing. But I also admired the Beatles as well as a unit.
I want to ask, what was the first Beatle album you remember owning on your own?
The Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl.
Really?
I was so excited. Yes, because it came out, and I do believe in 77.
Yeah.
And, they'd broken up long after that, about 7 years or so. And, there wasn't really anything coming out, just rehashed stuff. And then they said, "Oh, we're going to release the Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl." And no, it was the Star Club and the Hollywood Bowl that excited me. They came out around the same time. Yeah. But, to get a brand new album that it was bootlegged, but George Martin and I think it was Jeff Emmerich or somebody,
it was Jeff
they
Emmerich.
remastered it. Okay, so they remastered it. And, that was exciting to get that album. It really was, because I think I paid about $3.50 for it at the time. Got it at A&B Sound. That was a record store that was huge in Canada.
A&B Sound.
Yeah.
Was it
was huge.
Was it nationwide?
And I don't know, but whenever I was in Vancouver, it was Victoria. I'm from Victoria, so there was Kelly's and A&B Sound at the time. And then you could go to Eaton's or Simpson Sears, and you could buy records, but they were just a little bit more in the department stores. So, you know what I mean? Just like the mall, you have to pay a bit more at the mall.
I feel kind of uncultured about Canadian record store history, because the only big chain I know about is Sam the Record Man.
Well, they eventually did dissipate, and it's a shame. And it got too late to save all these wonderful record stores because your generation took too long to get it.
Yeah.
But now you get it. You know, you guys hoard so many records like we used to. Like, you know, the more the better, right?
Yeah.
But they're heavy, and when you put them in milk crates, you got to store them. So CDs are a little bit more easier to pack and store.
Yeah. But again, CDs are boring.
Well, not really. I mean, you know, there's some things that are not released on records. So you got to, you know, I don't know if you're into cassettes, but you should really get into it, because that world is really cool. You can get some really neat stuff in cassette form.
I mean, I don't have a tape deck. I own about 6 cassettes, all of which are by the band we're talking about today. But, you know, I find cassettes to be just kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to teach you something that, you know, you might find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I want you to do is be on the lookout for any kind of video machine that was a stereo recording, like a Sony that a stereo, or any kind of VCR that records, right? Mm-hmm. What you want to do is you want to take a video recorder from the 80s, hook it up to your stereo, put on the best Beatles record you have, and press record. You won't have a picture, but now you've got music on quarter-inch tape, and you're going to sound unbelievable when you play it back on your stereo. I used to do that at parties. I used to take my stereo video machine, hook it up to my stereo with RCA plugs, put on my turntable, and record it like a cassette deck. You're not going to get no picture, but you'll get the sound. And because it's on a quarter-inch tape, you won't believe the fidelity you get.
But wouldn't it still just be a needle drop?
Yep. But you want to listen to analog the best and record it on tape. Cassette is only half the size of videotape. The wider the tape, the better. It's all magnetic, right?
Yeah. But I've never really thought of VHS as like the ultimate audiophile format.
Well, it's because us guys are a bunch of brainiacs, and we had parties, and we wanted to have the best sound, and that's how we did it back then. We had very little to work with, but we kicked some serious butt with it.
Yeah. So,
you know, you couldn't just turn on YouTube and put on a playlist those days, you know?
Yeah. Again, I have about...
Ethan, get back to... what was that?
Oh, I was just going to say, even though I have about, 50, 55 Spotify playlists, it's not as fun putting on a playlist as it is, even though, I will admit, I am a record buyer, I have a decent collection, I hate records. They are, again, I've said this, they're a pain in the ass. You have to take care of them well. You can't touch the grooves. And then the further you get into audiophile territory, it's like, okay, well, you need to buy a record cleaning machine. You need to replace your stylus like every 4 minutes. It gets less fun as you go further into audiophile territory.
Well, it is true, but that's what we had to do back then. And even to this day, audiophile people that you want to take care of your records because, Ethan, they're your babies. Yeah. You know what I mean? They have to be looked after.
Oh, I've always taken care of my records. But it's like you have to take them out of the jacket, take them out of the inner sleeve, put them on the thing, brush the record, clean your stylus. Yeah. Then you have to, if you don't have like an auto needle drop thing, you have to look very closely, make sure you're not too far off or not halfway into the first song. Again, I'm preaching to the choir here.
So what I want to talk to you about today was, I'm going to get into, my band, which is All You Need Is Love. And we picked that name, or I picked that name because it's a great message and it's already copyrighted. And doesn't have any references to the name the Beatles. And so that's why I picked that name. And, the John guy in my band, his name is Ben, he thought, he said, "Do you think that name's a bit long?" And I said, "Well, it is, but it's got a great message." So I like that because, music can move people, and what we do for a couple of hours, brings people back to just listening to music and forget about their problems. So, I handpicked this band, and, the first guy I want to talk about is my John Lennon guy. His name is Van Gara, and, he's a great John. And I met him through an ad I put out in Kijiji. And, I have to tell you the truth, I gave him a hard time because I had all these John guys that said they were all that, but when I talked to them, they weren't. So I kind of, gave him a bit of a hard time. But when I met him, he knew a lot of songs and we harmonized well together. And, he's a self-taught musician, and he's always wanted to be in a Beatles tribute band for all his life. And he'd heard about me, but I didn't hear about him. So when he met me, I gave him his opportunity. And he's a very humble individual, but he's a very, very good musician. He helps with arrangements, guitar bits, and he's a great guy. So I don't know what I'd do without this guy because him and I were born to sing together, and he's like my brother. So I just wanted to talk about him today. And he's invested. He's got a Miami 19th reissue 64 Rickenbacker, the Casino, the J1 and Vox amp, and we invested all our money in the suits, and we have different costumes and wigs, Beetle boots, you name it. So that's my John guy, and and he wants to say hello to you guys as well today. Over in Ontario there. And the second guy up is my drummer, Aaron Patton. He's a great Ringo, because I'm the bass player, and him and I lock in. So that's one of the reasons. And he's just Reed Crapo, which is our keyboard player, always says that he's the most consistent guy of the band, and he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't make mistakes.
Beatle band or not, you don't really have a good band unless you have a consistent and tight rhythm section.
Well, that's very true, and that's in any band. And the greatest thing that's special about Aaron is he's actually a pastor.
Really?
But he's more of a modern day pastor. He's got a sense of humor just like all of us,
A pastor in a Beatle band.
And he's a great Ringo. He sings well. He's really solid on the drums, and just an all around really good guy, funny guy. He loves horror. He loves to go to those horror cans or whatever they are. And he dresses up as Mike Myers and scares people. I'm
gonna ask.
So he says hi. He says hello to you today too.
Oh.
Well.
Thank you to everyone else in All You Need Is Love.
Yes,
I almost said Come Together because that is what is on the poster behind you. None of the audience can see anything, so you'll have to take my word.
Well, you know what, Ethan? That poster back there is a show that we did for a huge mining company out here in Alberta, and they went all out for everything. So it was pretty neat show, and we enjoyed that. So that's what that is. So my next fella up is our keyboardist, and his name is Reed Crapo. And ladies and gentlemen, this fellow is not just a keyboard player. This fellow plays percussion. He sings. He helps us with the arrangement of our songs. He tells me if I'm flat or sharp when I'm singing. And he also does our sound. And, he's got 2 keyboards, and they're very expensive keyboards, but he can play horns, he can play violins, and play and proper time. And we do sampling. For example, beginning of Get Back, you hear the Beatles, they're going, Sweet Loretta Fox, you thought she was a woman, and we sample that. So you hear the Beatles, but we don't sample their music. you hear the Beatles talking, warming up for Get Back, and getting ready, and all of a sudden you hear one of us go 1, 2, 3, 4. The sample stops, so the audience gets to hear a sample, and that's pretty cool because we get to do that, right? And you don't get these sounds from the factory on these keyboards. He programmed them himself. Okay, so if you listen to Day of Life, there's all that orchestration going on, all that chaos, and the clock that rings.
Yeah,
Mr. Crapo has got that into the music. So we don't. I mean, this is nothing against any other bands that does this, but for me and Van have tried click tracks and other ways of trying to do this, and it didn't work for us. So we enlisted another member to play live with us, to be able to play all the keyboard parts and horn parts and percussion, and we couldn't possibly do with a 4-piece band. We play I'm a Walrus to the Abbey Road stuff, and you need strings, you need more, because the Beatles were progressing more. Like Sgt. Pepper, I can't do all that on my bass, all the horns and all that. So that's where Reed comes in, and we couldn't do our show without him. So I wanted to give him a large credit for that, because he deserves it. He's kind of like our Billy Preston.
That's a great way to describe it. Your very own Billy Preston.
Yeah. So the next guy, and Reed says hi to you too, Ethan.
Hello to you, Reed.
So, and Reed has been to the Cavern, for those Beetle Fest or those Beetle Week things.
International Beetle Week.
Yeah, and Van has been to Abbey Road, and I haven't been to any of that, and I didn't see Paul McCartney till I was 50 years old. So I'm always the last. Everybody I know has met Paul McCartney or something, but not me. So it was good to see him, But the next person...
I've never met Paul McCartney, but he did wave at me from the stage.
Well, that's pretty cool, because that's just like, you're lucky that he's still with us, and you got to see that, because you're only 18 and he could have not been around. So that's really cool.
Luckily, I was wearing cool. My blue Sgt. Pepper suit, so
that, he probably said, "Hey, I know that suit.
Yeah,
I have one too." So the next guy up is a fellow by the name of Brian Manduek, and Brian, the funny thing is, if you've ever gone to an audition before, it's pretty nerve-wracking. And the funny thing is, he auditioned for us, and to tell you the truth, he was a great guy, but he just wasn't ready yet. So that was that, because I was looking for somebody that was a little bit more ready. And through friends and things, you're always looking for a new George or something like that. And his name came up, and he showed up, and then we kind of like, did we audition this guy before? Well, I don't know. So we didn't really know. So a third time he came back, and I seen that he had potential. So I decided that I would go and work with him and try to help him. And, between you and me, and it's no secret, I'm a very demanding person, because I want it to be good.
Yeah.
So I have to say that he had the talent, but, I'm very demanding. So he really took a lot of demands from me, and I have to give him credit, because, he really, really hung in there, and, we have to praise him for that, and he's a hell of a nice guy. And so, but, he's our George. And I just wanted to mention that, there's not a lot of people that can take my kind of demands, because I'm pretty intense,
Yeah. You don't seem too intense to me.
Well, because I'm not in the studio, and, like you and I were friends.
Yeah.
And if you were with me and we were in the studio and we were playing them together in a band, I would say, Ethan, when I talk to you as friends, that's fine. But when it comes to the music, I can't bite my tongue just because you're my friend.
Yeah.
I have to say to you, look, these people, when you want to do the Beatles,
you can't skimp out.
That's right, because the music is so well known by people as young as yourself and people that were there from the beginning. So if you don't do it right, they're going to rip you to shreds. So, I mean, we must be crazy because we have big shoes to fill, right? So, I mean, that's no big deal because, we love to rehearse and, try to get it as good as we can and learn from other people that we watch on YouTube, because really there are thousands and thousands of Beatles tribute bands out in the world, and you can see them on YouTube. And here's the thing, all these people have to, they have to, track down Rickenbacker guitars, Gretsch guitars, Hofner basses, Vox amps, Ludwig drums, the suits. I mean, it's quite a cost, right? So there's only so many Rickenbacker guitars that are fire glow. There are only so many jet glows, and so people are after this stuff.
I mean, I'll say this about Rickenbacker. For a company that makes guitars, they seem to not like making guitars. Like,
no, it's not that at all.
Well,
it's all made in
their factory only produces a small number of stuff per year. I've talked with people who have been on a Rickenbacker wait list for 3 years.
You know what? I was just going to tell you that, Ethan. You're pretty sharp. You see, Rickenbacker is an American company out of California.
Yeah.
And if you try to sell some kind of knockoff Rickenbacker, they will come after you with their lawyers. They're the only company that does that. Okay?
Yeah. Even Gibson, when they were doing their whole play authentic thing, it's all talk.
Right. And second of all, let's just say you wanted a 12-string Rickenbacker like George's from A Hard Day's Night. They're not going to make it for you especially. They're going to wait until they have an order for a 360, C64, whatever it is, then you'll get it. And they're like a year and a half in advance orders because, Rickenbacker's Rickenbacker, they're very expensive guitars, but I will tell you this, either you like them or you don't, but they are very unique in their sound. And that's one thing about, Beatles bands all over the world, and that includes the best or the newest or, whatever. The moment that you plug in a Rickenbacker bass or a Gretsch guitar, you're going to hear the Beatles because that is what's on the records. But then again, you must plug into a Vox AC30 or something like that.
I'll tell you, one of the most magical moments of my life happened last year. I've been fortunate. I've been to enough guitar stores, even without buying the guitars. I've played most of the Beatle guitars. The Rickenbacker 325s, the Gretsch Country Gentlemen's. But last year, I finally got to try a Rickenbacker 360 12-string C63 or whatever it was at the Chicago Music Exchange. And so I took it into the little side room, and I just felt this aura when I picked it up, holy shit. And I plugged it into their Vox AC30, and, need I say more?
Well, if you're into Rickenbacker, did you know that Rose Morris had models in the UK that were different than Americans?
Yep, I know a bit about it. They had different model names. Their version of the 325 is called the 1996, and their version of the
oh my god!
Their version of the 4001 bass.
You're pretty sharp.
Their 4001 bass was called the 1999. I know that because there was a Chris White. Oh wait, no, not Chris White. Chris Squire from Yes had a signature model was the 1999.
And the one that Paul McCartney has is not a stereo Rickenbacker; it's mono.
Yeah.
There's no Ricco sound.
No.
Because I have that. I have a reissue, but it's not a C63. It's a V63 before C63.
Yeah. If my knowledge about the Rickenbacker company is correct, that would have made it. They switched over to the C series in 2001, something like that.
Yep.
I mean, that sounds about.
But they're expensive guitars. They really are expensive guitars.
Yeah, but I love them. But are they really worth $200 2.5 grand?
Well, everything's more money now. Even the Gibson Les Paul has gone up. So at the time when I was your age, a Gibson Les Paul was only $300 to $500
for a Gibson Les Paul.
Yes, and a Strat was about $300. American Fender Strats were about $300 in the 70s.
Oh man!
So if you were 18 years old in 1970, you could buy a Mustang for $2,500 out of the factory.
Wow.
So you missed the boat on that one.
I sure as hell missed the boat.
Well, it doesn't matter because you don't have to buy a Rickenbacker, but if you want one, you have to pay it because they're like Apple. They're not going to give you a deal.
No.
Yeah. But getting back to your show,
I actually just wanted to ask you a question. You were talking about arrangements for songs and stuff. I want to ask, what's been kind of the hardest song that's kind of like an unexpected one to get right on stage?
For us?
Yeah, and I don't even mean something like A Day in the Life where it's kind of inherently complicated. Just something weird that you guys have found kind of hard to nail right.
Geez, you got me on that one, but I would say nothing really in the early years, more from 67 to like the Abbey Road where, they were so good at their harmonies, like Because, that's the one, all right? If you listen to Because, if somebody's off or flat, we're done.
Yeah.
So that would be the one. Because is a very, beautiful arranged harmonies that the Beatles learned as way back as the Hamburg days. So they were veterans at harmonies, let's face it,
Yeah. The only other band that I think had as good harmonies as the Beatles in the 60s was maybe the Hollies.
Yes. The Bee Gees. There was Simon and Garfunkel, there was Everly Brothers. There were many.
Yeah. But there were only two Everly Brothers, and there was only Simon and Garfunkel. There were 3 Beatles harmonizing.
It's true. But, harmonies are beautiful whether they're 2, 3, 4, or 5,
Yeah.
And each of those particular bands harmonized in their own way. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Like, if you're going to do something difficult, the Beatles are pretty, that's how you do it. But when you want to do the Hollies, it's a little bit harder to figure them out. They do some really,
Yeah.
They were a little bit different than most British Invasion bands where their harmonies were outstanding. Not that the others weren't, but they just had a certain style, and everyone that is into the British Invasion talks about the Hollies, right?
I mean, you can say what you will. I love the Dave Clark 5. Their harmonies are not very complicated, if there are harmonies at all.
You know that Dave Clark bought all the rights for Top of the Pops, the shows, right?
Yeah. He also, I think, has, what was it called? Ready, Steady, Go. That was...
I'm sorry, not Top of the Pops. Ready, Steady, Go. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Dave Clark. What a shrewd businessman. It's like...
I'm not surprised, but I'm amazed that you can actually keep up with an old guy like me when it comes to what we're talking about, because most kids at your age would be stumped like, what are you talking about? Like, who's this? And, what's what? I mean, you should be patting yourself on the back that alone, because, what I love about the Beatles is, you have people, from kids to people your age to my age, and women like Kit O'Toole and Jude Sutherland are so good at their subject about the Beatles. And, it's great that everybody can be involved, whether you're a child or a man or a woman, it doesn't matter. It's a subject that, it's so neat to be able to just talk to somebody and you can be their friend right away because the subject you're talking about, you have passion about. And, that's another thing I want to bring up today is that, like yourself, I don't want to, make you feel bad, but you're on the internet on a podcast, so you're becoming a internet sensation.
I wouldn't use the word sensation.
Well, I can. So that's why I said it would make you feel bad, but you are. You're young. People can see it. You're knowledgeable. You have your own style. So you're the prince of podcasts. You can't be the king because you're just too young for that. You got to be a little bit older, then you can be the king.
Jesus, who's the king then?
There isn't one yet.
Okay.
You'll be the king when you get a little bit older, but you're the prince because you're only 18. You can't be the king. That would be you got too much too soon. All right, you got to be the prince.
I'm the prince, and as Prince once said, "My name is Prince, and I am funky."
There you go. So it's great that you're educating people. You're getting their minds off horrible COVID-19, where it's so miserable, and the passion for the Beatles and the people that you're getting on. And I'm in a Canadian Beatles tribute band, and when I tune in and I hear fans on the run like Mark Benson, I keep going on about Mark Benson, but I saw 1964, and I look up to guys like that. And when he talks about making his own Rickenbacker, making lighter amps, I mean, that's just brilliant. I mean, these guys have done it. So we've got to look up to that and try to be as good as that or better. Or,
I don't know if it was incredibly noticeable when you were listening to that episode, but I was fucking drooling when he was talking about, because I'm a sucker for any stories like luthier-wise, like building guitars and like building replica Rickenbackers. And when he was telling stuff about like building the 360 and the 325 and then making these kind of small dummy Vox amps and then getting a cease and desist letter from Vox because he was doing it too well.
He never did it. He never did it to sell. He did it to perform. Okay, mm-hmm. And you got another guy on there for your fans on the run, Russ Leese. None of us guys would have Beatles suits or costumes, and I'm talking about the best tributes in the world. We wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for Russ Leese. So Russ Leese, you get my hats off to you. And these are interesting things to listen to. Now, people are at home, they're not very happy, and they're listening to podcasts because people don't always want to watch TV, whether it's cable TV or internet TV. They just want to listen to, like, if you've ever been in your car and listened to AM radio and you listen to CBC for us in Canada, but in the United States, you just listen to somebody talking on the radio, could be Howard Stern or whatever, and you just forget about everything because you're listening to this person talking, which is great. So you're capitalizing that during the COVID-19 where everybody's at home, and you're making history. You're putting your passion into the Beatles, and you're getting these stories from people, and they're probably just going to tell you because they probably trust you, or there's something about your show that they like, Yeah,
this is completely unrelated to anything, but you just mentioned the CBC, and I just... talking about what is CBC Radio 1... I have this is what I think of when I think of CBC. I was once in the car driving home from the gas bay in Quebec with my mom, and all the stations were in French. I don't speak French very well, and so the only English station for like any of the ride was CBC Radio 1, and I still remember like tuning in trying to find an English station, and then they were talking about like two types of ketchup, and it's like this very analytical thing, and it's like, well, that's the CBC.
Well, Ethan, I think I heard you, whether it was one of your Fans and Run podcasts or on the internet live TV with me and Kid O'Toole, that you weren't sure if you were going to do podcasts. I think you just did one for shits and giggles, and you ended up, it fell into your lap, and you should be doing this because, you have people that are coming on your show on purpose because they want to support you because you're the future, after us old guys are gone, because you have such a passion for this. And, I think you were meant to do it, and I hope this doesn't hurt you, but I think your father would have been very proud of you because people are you're not just this kid that's messed up. I mean, you're sharing.
Yeah.
Why
would that hurt me? That just makes me happy to hear.
Yeah. I just think that he would be very, very proud of you because you're doing something that's entertaining people during a horrible threat to the world. Nobody's happy right now.
No.
So, when you're telling people about a story, these stories are not boring. I mean, you've got people on there, and if people love the Beatles, they're gonna tune into your show, and they're gonna listen to a podcast. Now, a podcast is for listening. Okay, so if you look at the history of the old days, families would gather around listening to old tube radio. Yeah. And that was the source of entertainment. Now, it's 2020. That has not changed for you. They're just not tube radios, right? So I congratulate you on the fact that you are very young. And I know I keep saying that, but we're all fascinated. And that's why all these people are coming on your show, because they want to meet you and they want you to preserve the history for you youngins. And, you should be proud of that because you're beating all these other people that wouldn't do it at your age. You're out there, being 18 and having a good time. So if you look back 20 years from now, you're going to say, I did create history on a podcast. You're not on an internet TV show. You're on a podcast, right? So
can I tell you just a little thing about the origins of the show? I think I've probably said this in other episodes, sure, but I'll let you in on a secret. The only reason this show actually happened was because it was towards the start of the COVID lockdown, and I was starting to feel really isolated. And it's like, man, I want to talk to people. Oh wait, I'll just figure out a way to talk to people. I'll just call it a podcast. It's like, well, I want to talk to people about the Beatles. Perfect. Do a Beatles podcast just so you can talk to people. And now here I am.
Well, you know what? You're probably right on that, but sometimes your chosen is your calling, and that's the way it is. And in a little bit, you and I are going to be on an internet TV show. And
it's all right. You can guess who that is? You can say his name.
Well, it's not a he; it's a she.
Oh yeah,
it is
her show.
Kit O'Toole. Now, we both love Kit because she's so smart and charming. She's a sweetheart of a person, isn't she?
Oh yeah. Kit may be my closest friend in this Beatle community.
Well, she certainly takes a liking to you. And what I like about meeting you and her is you're interesting in your own right because you are the prince of podcasts. You're PP, okay?
You know what? And this is doing more to boost my fucking self-esteem than I thought it would. I have a title now. I'm actually really excited about that.
Well, just make sure you just do a great job and you can keep it.
I will try and keep the throne.
So PP stands for Prince of Podcast. And then one day it'll be KP, King of Podcast.
Hear that, everybody else?
So, but you don't want to be the king right away. You want to work to it, right?
Because if I was the king right away, I might be, dethroned one day.
Then what could you go to? You can't go anything higher.
Yeah.
So then you got Kit O'Toole.
Why did I hear that Nigel Tufnell's voice when he said,
I don't know.
Can't go any higher. Yeah. Goes to 11.
Yeah. So then you get Kit O'Toole that writes a book about the non-popular Beatles songs that are brilliant. Now, you all have interesting things about you. And, I've enjoyed meeting her and talking to her. And, you're the Prince of Podcasts. Now, I'm going to bring up a very special friend of mine. And I'm close to this guy. Can you guess who it is?
Would this guy happen to be Australian?
He is.
Would
Classic EP.
Yep.
Classic EP. He is the greatest thing, sensation on the internet right now, and everybody's buzzing on him. And
I thought I was.
No, you're the podcast prince.
Okay.
Okay? He's the internet TV sensation.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And I'm close to him, and, you know, he is bringing Beatle people together, and a lot of them are, you know, older. And he's getting these stories that they trust him, and authors can get these stories that nobody's heard. And, you know, what he's done for me, promoting our band, All You Need Is Love. And, you know, there's the Paul McCartney that he died in 1966, and we've all kind of believed it and we didn't believe it. But he's got Leslie Candish on his show. Now, I'm a hairstylist. This guy worked with Vidal Sassoon. I have big respect for that because I'm Vidal Sassoon trained. He cut Paul McCartney's hair, and Plastic says, look, is it Paul McCartney? He says, same hair pattern, same features. So we squashed that theory that Paul McCartney's dead. So Paul, enjoy your life. He's not dead, he's alive.
To be fair, I don't know if he squashed it because I don't know how many people actually believed it in the first place.
You know something? They believe that Elvis hangs out at Burger King.
Well, doesn't he? I saw him there last week.
And you're Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Now, you've seen the Sasquatch, haven't you, in your backyard? It does exist, doesn't it?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
And you have seen Ogopogo, haven't you?
Again, my lips are sealed.
See? Isn't that a song?
Yeah, by the Go-Go's.
So, you know, I mean, it's great for us Canadians to be on his show because we're Canadian, and Aussies get along beautifully, you know? And for us to be able to do a show from Canada to Melbourne, Australian, that's great.
It's a ripper.
It is a ripper, and you know, he's ahead of his time for sure. He was born to do it.
Yeah.
He has been being. Did you know that he was Plastic EP since 1979?
I know. I have his records. His new wave singles from 1981.
Mr. Plastic EP has written 2,000 songs, and he's the only person I know that can cut a song in 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
You know
That's
what?
like that quote
I can't even write a song.
That's like that quote from the Ruddles, like, their first album was recorded in 20 minutes. Their second took even longer.
That's right. And you know the Ruddles, do you?
I love the Ruddles.
Well, do you know there were some Canadians in there?
Yes. Yes. I know there's a lot.
Who was it?
Oh, I know there's a lot of the Saturday Night Live people.
That's right. That's right.
Although I'm blanking on which ones.
Yeah. So, you know, we're getting geared up to do a rock show 2 for Mr. Plastic EP. And we're going to start taping September 12th. And we're going to put it out for people at home, absolutely free, so they can enjoy, you know, some music and, you know.
Well, that sounds like fun.
So we're looking forward to that.
I'll be watching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I want to hit you with some quick fire questions.
Sure, you go right ahead.
What is your favorite Beatles song?
My favorite Beatles song is going to be answered in 2 ways. Now, I've said it before, my favorite Beatles song is Help.
Help?
But I only like the mono version, okay?
That is...
They recorded...
I know exactly what you mean, the different take. But what about the mono version?
I'm going to tell you... Well, I'm going to tell you something because you weren't born yet. But in 1965, my Aunt Marion took me to see Help. And in the original Help movie, where you see Clang throwing the darts, it's all in black and white, right? You know the part I'm talking about.
Right? It's one of my favorite movies, even though it's a little outdated by today's social standards.
So the original, if you listen to it, it was mixed different and it was in mono. So soon as it came out for video, they dubbed in the stereo version.
I actually
right?
have
and
a copy of that 1965 film version of the soundtrack on my computer with the slightly different version of Help, where you can hear John stronger than anyone else.
That's right. And if you listen to Help, if you listen to the recording of it, the fidelity isn't that great. The 12-string, when I hear other versions of Help by tribute bands, not that they're playing the song bad, but the acoustic guitar is usually quite clean.
Yeah.
So it sounds too country. So if you listen to Help, that 12-string almost sounds like the meter's almost where the distortion would be, right? Before it starts distorting. So if you want to play the song properly, you want that 12-string to really sound rough, and you want to, push it a bit more. So when you play it live and you do that, all of a sudden you've got Help.
Well, that's the
stereo version's a bit.
That's the thing with a lot of John Lennon's rhythm parts. I've noticed, like, even listening to the raw isolated tracks, there are very few clean John Lennon. Like, George's tone was fairly clean with that Gretsch Country Gentleman, Duo Jet, what have you, Tennessean. But John's always sounded like it was on the verge of, like, blowing up the tubes in his AC-30.
Well, yeah. So my favorite version of Help is the mono version, and it's the way they played it. It's the way that it sounds. It's not very, there's other Beatles songs that are recorded better, but there's just something about that song that just grabbed me from the beginning. And, there's other Beatles songs, but that is the one that I'm always going to say, But my second favorite Beatles song is probably when when we get out there on stage and, people are digging the song. That's my favorite, because if it's their favorite, then it's my favorite.
Yeah. And so I want to ask, what is your least favorite Beatles song?
Well, a lot of people get asked that song, and I've always liked melodic and there was some phases that the Beatles went through that I wasn't really keen on, and probably not the idea itself, but Revolution 9 was not a melodic type of, it was very avant-garde at the time. So
it's a sound collage.
I still look at it as art, and I can, but for a song that I would perform, I wouldn't want to perform it. So that would be the song. Yeah. For me, anyways.
Well, I don't even know if I'd consider it a song.
Well, if it's listed on the album, it's a song.
That is a fair point. So, what is your?
Well, can you imagine hearing it? Could you imagine your grandmother sitting there going, "Who are you listening to? I thought you were listening to the Beatles. What is this number 9? Number 9?" And she might think it's rubbish.
Yeah. Well, I only listened to Revolution 9 the full way through last year, and I've been a diehard Beatle fan for about 10 years. I only listen to it like I have like 9 vinyl copies of the White Album, but it's usually I kind of turn it off as Revolution. So to be fair, that means I also haven't really heard Good Night. I haven't been as exposed to that because I just kind of turn the record.
I'm going to meet them. Exactly. You're going to find somebody that might really like a song that we don't like, and that's okay, because everyone has the right to like what they like.
Yeah, everyone's allowed to be wrong.
It's still the Beatles.
Yeah.
Right.
So I want to ask you, what is your?
And we all have artists that.
Oh no! Keep going. I interrupted.
Go ahead. No. I'm ready. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, what is your favorite Beatle album?
My favorite Beatle album. I'm going to say I have, Hard Day's Night.
Okay. Explain.
Well, I think I like A Hard Day's Night because they added that 12 string in there.
Oh.
And it just gave them the secret weapon. And the songs were just great on that album.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. It was the early Beatles at their peak. You know? All 13 of all of the tracks are original Lennon and McCartney, one Harrison.
Yeah, and it's 64, you know? I mean, think about it now.
It's the Beatles on top.
Richard Westman.
My friend John Montagna explained it this way. It's like the Beatles had just come back from the USA from doing like the Ed Sullivan Show. They were on top of the world. Who's better than us? No one. And so you hear the Beatles on top of the world.
Well, who's your favorite?
My favorite.
What's your favorite album?
My favorite album,
Beatles,
and the correct answer is Revolver.
Okay, well, you got spoiled there because that's when the Beatles completely changed.
Well,
now you got it.
What I like about Revolver is there's still traces of the early Beatles in there. Like with some songs like And Your Bird Can Sing and, Good Day Sunshine. But, they are very much experimenting in more ways than one.
Well, here's another thing. Here's another thing for you, Ethan. On Revolver, McCartney, Harrison, and Lennon started playing different amps and different guitars.
Yeah. They weren't really using the AC30s as much. I know George used this, I'm going to get the model number wrong. It's a Vox Solid State, a UL 730. I know that because I've been trying to search for that guitar tone for fucking years. That Dr. Robert And Your Bird Can Sing, just slightly distorted Vox Solid State tone.
There's a few pedals out there that can do that. What you're looking for.
Well, I know, but a lot of them are very expensive. Like there's this really nice one called like the Dr. Robert pedal.
That's the pedal I was going to tell you to get.
Yeah. It's
amazing.
Even got like artwork.
It's amazing.
It's even got artwork from Klaus Vormann on it.
That's right. It's amazing. It's amazing. You got to get it.
Do you have one?
No.
Have you played?
I'm a bass player.
Okay. Have you played it before?
No, but I saw it on a YouTube video. I keep up with my stuff just like you do, and it's pretty cool how they can get a pedal to do that.
And then there's other
because the moment you hear it, it's definitely Revolver, Paperback Writer. That sound.
Yeah. And there's other pedals like it's like this JHS. I think it's called like a crayon box that's supposed to be like DI into like a mixing desk. Like
you've done your homework.
Well, I'm a guitar player. I'm a music nerd. What can I say?
So what other question you want to ask me?
Why do you think the Beatles still matter?
Why do I think the Beatles still matter?
Yes.
Because they were not just musicians. They paved the way for fashion. They paved the way for technology, ADT, and all the things they did in the studio. They made the very first videos before much music and all that stuff. MTV.
Thank you for for once saying I finally have a guest that says much music before they say MTV.
Well, I'm Canadian.
Yeah.
They took control with Apple, even though it didn't work out with them. They did that meditation thing in India. They were forerunners in everything they did, and they didn't really. Their timing was so perfect. This was the swinging '60s, and they invented They wrote their own material. What's more to say? They wrote their own material, and they wrote songs that were jazz, children's songs, hard rock, country. You know, there was a lot. There was a lot there, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can imagine, I was 6 years old when Hey Jude came out. There was no song on AM radio that played as long as Hey Jude. Do you know that, Ethan?
Well, Inagata Devita came out the same year, but they didn't play them.
But it was not. They would have never played that song on AM radio. Yeah. Never.
And they wouldn't play the full 17-minute version.
And I bought the 45 at Woolworths for 99 cents. So, you know.
Not bad.
And I think it was Old Brown Shoe on the other side or something like that. And I didn't really get it.
B-side was Revolution.
Revolution. Okay, well, I didn't really get it because I thought, what is this heavy rock and roll? Like, what is this? You know, they started distorting and, you know, they were listening to Jimi Hendrix and, you know, they started getting heavier.
Now, here's my favorite part of the show. Where can we find All You Need Is Love?
Well, you know, you can go on our page and see our promo video, and it's Beatles band.net, or you can go on All You Need Is Love Tribute to the Fab Four and look at our Facebook page, or you can come on Nathan Lou LOO and see stuff there, or you can go on Plastic EP Show, or you can get on Ethan's Fans in the Run show, and you know, there's a way of finding people, right?
Well, Nathan, it's been an absolute blast talking to you today. I especially enjoyed geeking out about gear. That's something
Well, thank you very much, Ethan.
That's something I don't get to do very much.
Well, it was a pleasure, and from one Canadian to another, you know?
All right, eh?
You know what we always say, eh?
Yeah. The thing is, I always thought, like, Americans were exaggerating until I really analyzed my speech patterns. And it's like, oh, man, it's hot out today, eh? And then I catch myself like, you actually said A. But again, it also weirds me out, because it's like, don't Americans talk like that? Don't they say, like, oh, crazy out, eh?
Well, let me tell you something. You know Artie Saraf?
Yeah, Artie Saraf from the Fab Four. He was on the same.
All right.
He was on the same episode as Mark Benson.
I know that.
I know.
But I'm going to give you a little tidbit with him. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. When you want to go to one of his shows, you got to bribe him. Now you want to get NHL tickets with real good seats, and you message Artie and say, "Look, Artie, I got hockey seats for you to see the LA Kings, and you're going to have a buddy for the night." Artie loves hockey.
Have you personally done this bribe before?
Yes, I have. I live in Calgary, Alberta, where the Calgary Flames are here, and we spoke many years ago when the Fab Four were just on the scene, and he says, "Nathan, come to the show, and you know I'll take care of it." And I said, "All right, I'll be there." And then I found out that I had to play. I was so devastated because I got to go meet this guy and see him, you know. And then I didn't bother him because he was getting more famous. But you know, if there's a good LA team and he's around here, I'm going to bribe him because he loves hockey.
Yeah,
he loves hockey.
I was going to say, you live in Calgary with the Calgary Flame. How does it feel living in an area with a hockey team that doesn't completely disappoint?
Have you ever been to a hockey party after they win the Stanley Cup?
No. The Maple Leafs haven't won the Stanley Cup since 1967.
Well, I'll tell you, people get wild and they go crazy. Hockey, sorry to say, guys, is a Canada game. We own hockey, all right?
Even if most of the players are
straight.
Russian.
It doesn't matter. Hockey is Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
But Americans love hockey, so we can all be enjoying the same sport. Like I said, if you want to hang out with Artie, get some hockey tickets, and you're in.
There you go. You heard it here first. Fans on the Run.
Yep, and tell him that you want one of his basses, okay? He's got a whole bunch of them.
I told him if you ever wanted to get rid of one of those Rickenbackers, I know where it would go to good use.
That's right. What would you do with the Rickenbacker?
Probably play it.
You would be in your glory to have a Rickenbacker and putting on the jacket, I'm telling you.
Well, the closest thing I've got to like a real Rickenbacker is my buddy has a 330. Although I don't like the neck. So that's kind of put me off of Ricky's.
Well, don't be judging by one guitar. You know, they're not all like that. Believe me, if you want to play Beatles, you got to have the Beatles guitars.
Well, yeah.
You don't. But if you want to look cool, you got to have the Beatles guitars.
The Gretsch, I will say, is a very, very comfy guitar. A very nice guitar to play. I got to play like an original 64 Country Gentleman at a music store, and I was in heaven. You
should have just walked out with it.
Yeah, again, this was the Chicago Music Exchange, so they probably had like a sniper on me, like as I was walking around the store.
Well, listen, we both got to run here, you know. You get it? Fans on the Run, we got to run.
Anyways, Nathan, it's been awesome.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And where are we going to be in 20 minutes?
I don't know. Somewhere.
We're going to be on the Plastic EP show from Melbourne, Australia. Hey, bananas, you think you're groovy? Hey, bananas.
What a world. To everyone else out there.
Are you ready?
To everyone else out there, thank you for listening. You can go home.
Fans on the Run is produced by Ethan Alexanian. Additional voiceovers by Richard Phillip. This has been a Showtown production.